Welcome to Guards Down. Join your host, Greg C. Washington, as he explores how people from various backgrounds have overcome bouts with trauma and complicated grief. If you're stuck, know someone who might be, or want to be in a position to help someone, you're in the right place. We can't wait to share the tips and tricks we've learned on our journey to healing and putting our guards down.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Guards Down. This is Greg Washington, your host, and I have with me today a very, very good friend of mine and special guest, Brandon Nehilla.
Peace, folk. How out there?
Well, before we get started, and I always say this, on the show, getting started, I want to tell a story about me and Brandon, and I guess my introduction to how I learned to deal with the trauma and grief I was going through. So Brandon and I grew up in the same neighborhood. We were, how old were we when we first met?
I think I don't think I can't remember the exact day, but my first memory of you, Greg, is the top of the hill. The field right there by Landmark Apartments.
Yeah.
Playing football up there. I think that's my earliest memory of you, like playing football in that field. And I remember thinking, like, God, he got a big head, man. And he's strong. And he big and he fast. And it hurts when he hits. That's my earliest memory of Greg.
And so those old days, I want to say we were around 8 or 9 of playing sandlot football.
Yeah.
In an empty field and just little kids in the neighborhood, just wandering, getting together because it was a basketball court over there nearby. And so we were on to the basketball court, and then when it was like, hey, it's a bunch of, guys, like, let's play football. And I remember you and your brother having your football, and everybody split up into teams, and we just went out there and got it in, and an instant friendship was formed, and wait for almost 21 years, 20.
Yeah, man. Like, well, yeah, yeah, bro. That's crazy. Going on 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. 2 decades.
Mm-hmm. Look, no, you know what? I gotta give us our due credit. Look, my math bad. It's early in the morning on this end. I'm 38 now, so
yeah. It's like, we going on 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's crazy to think about because those memories are still vivid.
Indeed.
They ain't lost.
And so the part that I want to get to is, I didn't necessarily share or show what my house and what was going on at the time, dealing with, of course, grief and trauma with, my mom and dealing with. And so meeting y'all, and I remember when football season came up and you asked me to come join the team. And I was like, man, my mom's not going to let me, because I knew her. And, when I asked, she was like, no, baby, I don't think so. And so I had to come back, and it was me, you, and your dad, came to the house, and he convinced her, to let me come play, that he would help get me to practice and look after me and the whole nine. And it all up. And so finally she was like, all right, he can play. And from the age of 9 to the age of 24, I haven't missed a football season, since. And so that was one of my favorite memories of us meeting, and also your dad. We'll touch that. So tell us about yourself.
Whew.
hit a topic
Oh,
early.
do what?
I said I know we hit a topic early, and I'm gonna let you speak on it.
Um, nah, we'll go with the direction you wanted to go initially. Nah, I'll just say this. It's just good to hear people talk about my dad. Whew. All right, me. I'm not sure what type of breakdown you want. But if I guess from my perspective, I'm a stand-up guy. Uh, I love art in all its many forms. Um, I care about people, and I kind of have this idealistic hope that something good is going to come along. And I think that is what keeps me moving day to day through life in general. I mean, because you know my story, Greg, it's deep.
Indeed. And so you use art as a self expression and also a reflection of of who you are and how you feel and your emotions, and you allow that to just to move you. We'll get into.
Yeah, it's medication.
Mhm,
Art is medication for me.
I like that. And a lot of folks, I haven't heard anyone use it in that sense. And so, for some of the art things you do, because I remember you learned how to play. You taught yourself how to play a couple of instruments growing up.
Yeah. So growing up, I got in a band and loved it. Music was awesome. I played the baritone, was my first instrument. From there, I learned how to play the trombone through Cheeseburger Cheese. You remember Cheese?
Yeah.
We had the same music class in middle school, and he played trombone, and he was right beside me. And I got kind of bored with the baritone, so I started learning how to play trombone with Cheese as well. And then I picked up the trumpet a little bit because I just thought it'd be cool. And I kind of let music go in high school because music didn't get girls, football got girls. And if I knew then what I know now, I definitely would have stuck with the music. Um, but then I picked up after that. I picked up the trumpet a little bit again, and I picked up the bass guitar and taught myself how to play my music with the bass guitar. I tell people all the time, I'm not a bass player. I can play the bass with my music. But yeah, there's that with music. I'm a writer. I've written for other people. Mainly write for myself though, because it's mainly for me. Short stories, quips, and things of that nature. Uh, I paint, I draw. I do woodburn art. I do personalized woodburn skateboards and Greek and Masonic paraphernalia. Uh, I do a lot of things. I mean, yeah, I guess I kind of call myself a Renaissance man, you know, because I really do it all. I like to perform. I like to do monologues. You know, came up stepping and dancing, and yeah. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
you've done music. You played sports throughout, your life, and then also when you got to college, um, well, you were in the Greek life.
yeah. hmm I joined Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Uh, Spring '05, number 5, Blue Beast. Backs against the wall, man. Shout out to my line brothers. I love all y'all. Shout out to Ada. Shout out to Honorable Brother Golston, who just turned 80 years old. Um, yeah, man. I love my frat, the beautiful people. I love all the frats and sororities. They're beautiful people. Yeah, and I think through Sigma, I guess it kind of opened me up to art simply because I didn't want the same paraphernalia everyone else had, and I got a need to stand out, so I started doing canes, woodburn canes, and woodburn staffs, and then I moved on to paddles and plaques, and now I cut out my own designs for wood burning and painting, and I gloss them. I've added new features like LED lights on them and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm a crafty individual, I guess you could say.
All right, guys. I feel you. I feel you. Okay, well, let's get into the meat. This, of course, the show is about how different cultures view, treat, and overcome trauma and grief. And the goal is to be able to, one, normalize the talk around it so that people know that it's okay, one, to talk about your feelings and share, and two, uh, to go to seek help if you need it, and to learn other different tools and techniques that other people have picked up along the way that you can put in your toolkit and use to fight another day. So the first question I like to ask is, did your parents or someone around you growing up teach you how to deal with grief and trauma?
um, I guess I had 3 teachers, so to speak. My dad, he was there when my mother passed away. He took me and my brother in. My dad's the one that took care of us after my mother died. And he had lost his mother when he was an adult. So he kind of understood the pain of losing your mother. Couldn't fathom, what it's like at an early age, though. And I would say he was very understanding and nurturing that I was super emotional. Brian kind of took it different. He was more like the brunt, like the brick wall when mommy died. And but I was more the emotional one. I guess it's supposed to be that way. I don't know. And I mean, he was just more understanding with me. And when I got to a certain age, he sat me down and said, "Oh, having all that emotional is great, but you got to learn to control it. You can't run around angry your whole life because you're a black boy." Which was strange hearing my dad say that, but as a black man, it makes sense to me now.
Explain.
And
It was strange.
I apologize. It was strange because I'm mixed, and my dad was a white man, who had no idea how to raise black boys, and he did his best. So he was genuinely concerned about exactly what's going on right now. It's sick. It's crazy talking about it because the story becomes linear now. Because you're drudging up memories. I didn't know I remembered. You know how things just kind of come back to you when you talk about it.
Yeah. And take time. This is something where I know me personally, I kind of held up on reaching out to you just because I knew this one would be very emotional. And because, I mean, you've been my friend for the longest. And so everything you went through growing up, I was right there with you. And so, you know, I was right along the way. So, you know, meeting you and when you lost your mom, we became a part of each other's tribe because
Yeah.
you needed a mom. You found that in my mom, and
Man, straight up.
I needed, you know, a dad. Not that my dad wasn't not there, but the distance made him not there.
Yeah.
When I needed that, and having someone to constantly a figure to look up to on a daily basis, it was your dad. And so when you talk about him raising, you know, black men, your dad was raising men. And that was so honorable to me for me to see that and just to have you guys in my life because, you know, I didn't have an older brother. And, you know, at the time I didn't have a little brother. So, you know, it was just me and girls in the house. So
Straight up.
it was it was good. And you know, eventually my little brother came along, but he was still too young to play with, you know, at the time. So it was y'all that we were so close and so tight. And so to for you to be able to see your dad and for you guys to instantly have a connection where he took life lessons and passed them on to us about how to deal with grief and trauma, you know, and at such an early age, and you to pick up on it and him to recognize, all right, Brandon, yes, your emotions, you have to learn how to control your emotions because I know what society is like and what's out there. And so I need to prepare you for this now. And you being able to take heed to it and show it, right? And embody it and express it and take action. That's the part that, you know, I really wanted to to get out and hear, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, man. So back to grief teachers. From my father, I had my grandmother and my grandfather as well. And my grandfather wasn't so vocal. He was quiet, kind of stoic. Black man, wasn't really big, 5'9", maybe weighed 165. Um, uh, Big, meaty, strong, calloused hands. And, you know, he had fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, did multiple tours in all three of those wars. And never went to any kind of counseling. Because, you know, back in those times, if you're in the military and you're Black, if you're in the military and you go see counseling, period, in those times, you were automatically red flagged. And it would stop your ability to get promoted and move forward. So yeah, he never think about that. 3 wars and multiple tours and 3 wars, and never went to any type of counseling. He managed, and I took heed of that. I knew most of these stories because my grandmother told me the stories of my grandfather. So that's why I kind of say it's kind of 2 teachers. My grandmother talked about him never getting counseling and how he needed counseling, and my grandfather showing me that through his actions that he was fine. But honestly, I don't know if he was fine. He appeared fine to me, but that's an insight a grandson I don't believe will ever have into a grandfather. Unless the relationship is an open, vocal, honest relationship. And my grandfather taught me how to use my hands, how to work with my hands, how to use my mind to solve problems with my hands. From fixing chairs, building chairs, adding annexes to a old trailer in his backyard and stuff like that. He taught me a lot, and I think he worked through his worked as his counseling method or medication, kind of like I use art now. But my grandmother and her urging or constant, I guess he would say, nagging and saying you need to go to counseling, it made me seek counseling as well. And my father being open and vocal all the time made me open and vocal, which is why I don't really hide my thoughts or feelings about anything at any given time. So when you ask, like, are there any restrictions? Like, nah, there really aren't any restrictions. I mean, it may be difficult to talk about, but I'll usually more than willing talk about just about any aspect of my past, because one of the things I learned from you and your family and your mother was the aspect of church and God. And though I am not a religious individual anymore, or it y'all taught me faith, like real faith, like in a sense that I never understood it before. Because you know, my dad believed in God and he talked about Jesus, but he didn't do it in the way your family did it, you know. And that helped me with grief as well. So I don't know, man. I guess I just kind of pay attention along the way, man. And life has kind of been my grief counselor, and the who God or the universe or whatever semantics you choose, insert here. My path, my journey, my life. I've had situations where I guess I've just paid attention to people who were talking to me, and it's that simple. Like, be slow to talk and quick to listen. You learn more.
Mm-hmm. I like that, man. Paid attention along the way. So to have, you know, your dad, which we spoke on, to have your grandfather, who I thank him for his service and what he done and the sacrifice. But to have him be an example of, you know, toughness, not seeking counseling, and just putting his actions to work, and then being able to, you know, have the reflection from your grandma of yeah, he needs counseling. And so to pay attention to all that along the way and kind of just be able to piece your own puzzles of it together, that's kind of been the flow of most people that I talk to. It's just interesting because I strongly believe the way you grew up and the life experiences that you learn or endure at an early age help set you up for how you cope and deal
Yeah,
with it later on.
indeed.
So when we talk about coping skills, right, what coping skills have you learned along the way, healthy and unhealthy?
Um, Honestly, just being vocal about it, talking about it. When you have opportunity, when you're in a safe space, around family, friends, um, uh, talk about it. What's going on? I mean, when people ask, I know a lot of times people feel like people don't really want to know your problems, or they just want to know your problems to hurt you. Well, you honestly, you can only be hurt if you choose to be hurt by people. And you got to let that go, because people are going to disappoint you, because people are people. Uh, we disappoint each other, and sometimes it's on purpose. More often than not, I like to say, I'd like to hope that it's not on purpose. It's accidental, but life happens and disappointment happens. But in order for you to get, I believe, in order for people to get past what they're dealing with, they have to talk about it. They have to allow their emotions to run their course. Uh, if you don't, you become stunted um, in your own growth and progression. Which, and I'm speaking my own personal testimony to when my brother died. And Greg, you were there, and you the only person I had at the time, besides Jazzy, and everything that was going on. I got stunted. I didn't really want to talk about it. I didn't really want to um, cope or with it, period. Um, I wrote several poems and verses and about Brian. Um, I've recorded. Honestly, I've tried to perform them. Most of the time, I can't even get them out. Like, literally, I'm doing a whole show, and I try to do this song that I wrote for Brian. I literally just get choked up on stage and emotional. I can't get it out. I'm still a little stunted. But that's one of the things that I'm working through, my grief.
Yeah. I think the biggest part that you said to pull out from this is finding a safe space, and two, speaking about it. And so even though it hurts, you still move on. You still are able to go up on stage, be Brandon, and
Yeah.
and express yourself and go after your passion and what you love to do. And I mean that's the biggest part why I commend you. And just hearing how you have that internal, you know what I mean, to keep going. That's why I love you, brother. It is. That's why I love you.
My
And
dad my dad said one thing. I was never the biggest, I was never the fastest, never the most talented football player. But my dad told me at a young age, he was like, you know what? He said all of that. You're not this, and you may never be, but you got more heart than anyone else out there, and heart takes you a long way. And I think that's just what it is. I got heart.
indeed, indeed. And to go back to the part of talking about faith, right, in this, and most people won't know that I grew up and I sang in the choir. right, at church. And
Straight up.
and so it was one of those things where my family taught me how to go to church, how to give, you know, my frustrations to God and pray that, we'll see better days. Physically, what I learned was being able to have a stress release through playing football and running track. I wish I could have picked up an instrument and learned how to play it, because that's a beautiful form of expression. And I mean, I've gotten to listen to you at some of your concerts and see you perform. And for you to just be able to like really express yourself is something that I admire. I admire a lot. And so man, like you really given some tools to put in the toolkit with all of this. Your mother passed away, your father passed away, and your brother died. And literally, like, your nucleus, that's everyone.
Yeah,
Right?
and my grandmother and my grandfather.
My grandmother and grandfather.
So it goes. My mother passed when I was 9. Then my grandfather passed when I was 14, 15. I didn't have my license yet. And my cousin, I remember because my cousins came down. We was partying. Then went to the Army after I graduated, came back, started going to A&T, and my dad dies. My freshman semester, that's my first semester at A&T, my dad dies. The next semester I cross and, move forward. And then, then Brian died. Well, then Brian dies. Which 2012, I think it was. 2012, yeah, or 2011. 2011 or 2012, Brian died. Pardon me on these dates, man. I don't really follow dates at all. And then my grandmother died. Anyone who has had any hand, like, who has known me since I was a baby is dead. Like,
Yeah. So you have really, really dealt with grief your whole life. And to ask how you made it through, is such a understatement of the question. So, and so to ask how you made it through, more so around, I believe that when you're going through something and when your body is feeling a certain way and you don't know what it is, that you have to research it. You have to find what it is, because once you're able to put a name to it, right, you're going through and what you're feeling, you can start to put a game plan towards.
yeah.
And so walk us through your experience and how.
I, it feels cheesy saying it this way. But and it only feels cheesy because I've heard people and I know people and I've heard people say similar things, but I know them personally. And it's like, Yeah, but I know the truth. Uh, Honestly, man, I feel like the trials and tribulations of me growing up were a distraction to the grief that I had to deal with, I guess, properly or adequately. I mean, the complexities of growing up in a mixed household or being a mixed race. And my mother was black and my dad was white. My mother dies. My dad is dealing with white women only again. Like, I don't know if it was just, I don't know why. He was attracted to my mom for a period, and then he just went on to white women, back to white women, whatever his preference was before that. And in that, he married some racist white people, and I was raised in a house with a stepmother who claims she did her best, uh, who literally said God didn't intend for us to mix races, which only in turn, as a 9-year-old fucking kid, is if God didn't intend for us to mix races, what type of hellish baby am I? Like, where does that put me? Where do I belong in this world? And thank God I had my grandmother on the other end, blackity black, came up through Jim Crow, literally got kicked out of on base in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, on base, got kicked out of the shop because she was black. My mother, and my uncle Craig got kicked out of a diner on post because they were black. Like, lived through all of that. And if I didn't have her there to kind of balance it out, honestly, it's like I was forged through all of this weird love and hatred and anger and frustration, and I kind of was like forged through it. So step by step, it was like as soon as I got into kind of dealing with my grief with my mother, I'm dealing with the racist stepmother and not wanting to be there and needing to get away, which is why I was always out of the house, which is why I was never in the house, why I was always up the hill, always playing basketball, always running in the woods, building makeshift go-karts with Benny, stuff like that, because I couldn't stand being there. So it kind of forced me to go somewhere else and find safe spaces throughout my life where I didn't have to deal with if I didn't have to deal with my racist stepmother, I'm certainly not going to deal with the fact that I lost my mother, and I'm just going to enjoy life as it is right now, because as soon as I get home, I got knots in my stomach, and I really don't want to be here at all,
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm listening and I'm just connecting our two paths together with this. So, dealing with the politics of adults at a child's age, our safe space was the playground.
Yeah.
And playing, being active was our outlet, our stress relief. And so, I mean, that's amazing to hear, in the sense that, and I mean, we never shared, these parts of why we were on the playground and what we were going through, at home during that time. It was just, man, I'm a friend, we can play, we can hang out, we ain't got to worry or deal with what's going on at home, and we can just be ourselves and be kids.
Yeah.
That's what we were. And so that's a beautiful thing, to be able to just allow your child to go play. There's a lot of what I'm just sharing. There's a lot of other coping and social mechanisms in play.
Yeah, indeed.
Your kid.
Not to mention, we are resilient. Kids are as an adult, looking back and looking down on our kids, and they're freaking resilient, amazingly resilient. It's like, wow. I guess that's how I did it. Because kids are just resilient. I believe that's really what I think that's a God-given trait to be able to move forward for most of us. And there are definitely differences in personalities and people and upbringings and dealings and goings ons. So I definitely don't mean to umbrella anyone under that and to say that it's not different for anyone else, because it is different for everybody, because how we cope and how we deal is different. And there are so many different factors that play in how we do that. So, yeah, I just wanted to be clear. Like, I didn't mean to like alienate or make anyone feel like they're dealing.
Not at all. Because the question I was going to ask you was, do you think there's a cultural difference in how people cope?
Well, yeah, definitely. What in America, speaking to black and white and what is okay culturally, yeah, we shouldn't trust doctors given American history. Black people should not trust doctors. We should not trust what they're giving us, simply because of how they treated us in the past. And if we do, there is a level of insanity that you have to acknowledge in trusting a system that experimented on us just to see what would happen. Like, literally just to see what would happen. Well, let's see what would happen if we fuck these niggers up. So yeah, cultural differences. No, we shouldn't trust doctors. No, we shouldn't trust going to psychiatrists and psychologists. As a black man, how can this white man relate to me and my struggles? How can this white woman relate to me and my struggles? Yeah, there are cultural differences. There's no way we can't seek help if the person we're looking at doesn't appear helpful and has been a threat to me my entire life. How can I trust you?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everyone in the medical field is bad. I'm just saying, given what you have taught us through your behavior, yeah, there's cultural differences. No, we shouldn't trust you. You've treated us like lab rats time and time and time again. And it's not just you treat other people, other cultures like lab rats as well. You treat women like lab rats. Like, you treat prisoners like lab rats. Like, so no, we shouldn't trust these people. But in the same breath, where else are we going to go for help? It's scary.
Yeah.
I have tried to get PTSD counseling through the VA 3 different times. Every single time I have an initial interview, drudge up all that shit, schedule the second interview. Before the second interview comes around, funding is lost, and I can't even go through it. 3 times, Greg. 3 times. I've tried to
seek help and couldn't get it.
3. Every time I go through that, you ask Jazzy, it's months before I can sleep again. Months. I'm trying, Greg. I've reached out. It's tough, man. It's tough. They say seek help. I do. I have. Ain't no help.
I got you. Well, we're gonna see if we can get you help right after this. In that sense, I am going to talk to some people I know and see what we can do on that front. All right, so I appreciate you sharing that part and answering the question of cultural differences in addressing condition as to why we have stigmas about getting help. Being treated as lab rats would definitely put fear in anyone going to get help when you look and you see that the system isn't for you and you don't want to be a lab rat, let alone you don't want to be a number. And so, that brings up a great point around, the different cultures and also, the stigma around it. And the fact that it's like, okay, well, where else do we go to get help? Now you're forcing my hand to go get help. And once I do acknowledge that and go, one, there's no funding. Two, there's cultural implications that you're not going to be able to understand me because you never lived my life. And so therefore you're assessing and diagnosing me based on your culture and what you've been through, not me. And so you bring up a lot of great points because part of this is also about cultural sensitive therapy. If your therapist, counselor, mental health professional looks like you and has been through some of the same or similar experiences you've been through, then I believe that the treatment will have greater satisfactory outcomes,
Yeah.
well. And I mean, what you said really just hits the point. Now, I know some people where they're to the point where they don't give a shit who they talk to. They just need to talk to someone because they're past that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I definitely acknowledge and get that. But if you have a chance to, meet and be with someone that can share and find that common ground in your experience or even, your background, uh, that's something that helps. So let me ask you this. What are some of the signs that you're dealing with complicated grief and PTSD, thoughts, feelings, actions like that someone else would be able to identify in themselves?
Um, um, uh, Feeling a sense of angst, I guess. In I guess what people would call normal situations, like the grocery store or shopping mall, Walmart or something like that, and just being around certain groups or big groups, having a sense of angst, uncertainty, or anxiety, the need to always know how to get out, like, um, yeah, kind of, I get kind of like this depressive, depressive, high energy depressive. I wouldn't call it like manic depressive. I get like these thoughts and it brings me down and I feel this kind of way about it. And then I turn it into kind of like this, I don't know, maybe it's a poem or maybe it's an orator. Maybe I'm just typing the hell out of my damn phone, putting it on Facebook, just punching my screen really hard. Uh, uh, the the need to kind of get out or say something, that depressive thought, and talk about that depressive thought. I don't get this happy and then this depression. It's more like this depression and this anger um about the depression. And that's how I would describe it. It's because you don't know why you can't not think about it. It doesn't always happen. You feel kind of lost in the sense you can't control your own emotions or your own thought patterns sometimes. Lack of sleep, which only promotes all those other things. Yeah, I think at my lowest, I was really just in a sense of despair. Just, I mean, you were there for most of it. It I don't know, man. Emotionally, I think when you start to feel that angst, start talking about it. Talk to whoever's beside you, your home, your brother, your sister, your girl, your wife, your kid. If your kid, I mean, don't stop treating kids like they're fragile. They're not fragile. We talked about this earlier. They're resilient. Talk to the kids. They're fragile. They need to know about this life. They need to know what they will be dealing with later on in life if they don't know how, if they don't start to conduct themselves different from how you conducted yourself. I didn't do a good job of coping and dealing with my grief simply because I didn't really feel a safe space to talk about it in that aspect. And so I've opened up that safe space for my kids, for my oldest. My oldest is 17, man. Last summer, he just came flat out and just told me a lot of private stuff and felt comfortable talking to me about this private stuff, which made me feel amazing because I definitely didn't feel this comfortable talking to my dad about this stuff. And my dad was cool. You knew my dad. My dad was real cool.
Yeah.
But I definitely did. My dad thought I was a virgin until I came home and told him that LaToya was pregnant with Malik. The power of denial is real, bro. But yeah, like, so I think opening up that dialogue for our kids and talking to your kids about what you're going through as well. I talked to Malik about it. Yo, you know the world don't give a fuck about you, right? So you got to change. You got to act accordingly. So what do you want to do? How do you want to move forward? How do you want to progress? You got to map this stuff out. All conversations I never had from anyone in my family growing up. Dealing with our emotions will directly affect how we conduct ourselves in every other aspect in our lives, how we conduct ourselves in a business aspect, how we conduct ourselves artistically, how we conduct ourselves in everyday interactions with human beings, going to a gas station and dealing with Karens, and dealing with flat out stupidity, because it ain't always a race thing. It ain't always a gender thing. Sometimes it's just stupidity, like, that we're dealing with. And how we learn to cope at an early age will groom us into being better adults than our parents, and our children better than us, and our grandchildren better than them. It does comes back to that talk about it, what we were saying earlier.
So we talked through the signs, those feelings of feeling, angry, having moments of feeling angry. You call it a high energy type depression, a couple of other things. And, so those are just the thoughts and the feelings of what a person goes through. And you'll see signs of aggression. You'll see how people will talk differently about, life and about certain things that probably used to make them happy before, you'll see change, especially if you're close to them. So I appreciate you sharing that part, and also giving the understanding that you need to get it out and you need to talk, and your safe space to talk. And so you bring up one part that is a lifesaver. And we both recognize this, and understanding what we went through and not wanting our kids to go through it is definitely motivation, one, for us individually to make a change, and then two, to open up and travel down those hard roads that we had to travel down solo so that they don't have to. And so I appreciate you bringing, that part of it up. And so with this next portion, what can someone do to support a person who's dealing with grief and trauma? How can you help yourself, and how can you help others outside looking in?
Honestly, I think it's a matter of being there. That simple. A phone call, a text, literally being there. Just that's everything for folk, man. Like that's everything for folk. Understand that sometimes just because you're attempting to be there doesn't mean that they will be open arms willing to receive you, but just keep being there. Sometimes I don't honestly, sometimes I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to talk to people. I love everybody that I love. And there's a good portion of time for the past few years, I just not been wanting to be bothered by anybody. Period. And that's a part of my journey and my coping, because sometimes I need to remove myself in order to digest everything that I've just taken in from the world for the last however long I've been taking it in, and reanalyze my thought process and my approach to how I intend to move forward in life. Not everybody needs that. Some people need people. Some people absolutely 100% need people around to keep their energy level up, to keep their energy level, so to speak. Simply because they just don't have it in them to perk themselves up. So yeah, be there. Sometimes that means you feel like you're being annoying. So what? Get over it. Be there. Sometimes they may be annoying you. So what? Be there. It's the difference. It could literally be the difference in saving someone's life, man. I felt like, we've lost so many people, Greg, and it's just crazy. I'm speaking to that, be there. Couple years ago, God, I don't even know, man. I lose sight of time. I think maybe it was early 2019 or maybe it was 2018. I can't remember right now. But lost a homeboy. Good brother, Fayetteville, used to break dance with Devitt Griffin. He was in the military as well. Good brother, beautiful brother, man. Always just smiles and laughs and jokes, and everything was he just seemed to be in the best place all the time. He had issues with his parents. He pretty much raised his little sister, took care of her, raised her. While he was in high school, he was raising her. Still breakdancing, learning how to breakdance, going to shows and getting better at that. And we used to run a couple of crews together and dance and shit. He planned a trip to go to Japan and was like, yo, that's so dope, man. You're gonna get to break, this and that. We had a whole conversation about it. And this was months before he went. And we wouldn't talk for a few months at a time because, Army and life and shit. And then I see his wife post that Devitt killed himself while he was in Japan. He planned the whole thing. how this whole time he just seemed cool. He just seemed great. Like I said, man, he was all smiles and jokes and laughs all the time. He helped me through Brian dying too. Like he was there. He was always there when I needed him. He was there when my dad died. And then he just decides to go to Japan to kill him. He plans like you got a wife and a kid at home. Like what are you going through, brother? What are you going through? Be there. That's honestly, be there. And even then, you may fall. You may not be there at the time that they absolutely need you. But it's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. But the only way you win this gamble is if you're there. So be there, please. Just be there for people, man. Like I think that's all you can do. I mean, you talk about what can you do? It's you're at the mercy of the person that needs your help when you're trying to help. So as a helper, you're at the mercy of the helpee, because all you can do is show up and hope that they can tell you what to do to make them better. And if not, hope that what you're doing will make them better. Other than that, the alternative is not be there and know that you're doing absolutely nothing to help.
Yeah. Man, that's powerful. Be there. Not that you really have to do anything. Just be there. They might not want to talk. They might want to talk for hours. And you know, the story that you shared of your friend, and you planning that out and having so much anger and frustration or sadness and grief in your life that you want to commit suicide, and that's hard. That's heartbreaking, because you know, I strongly believe that with suicide, it doesn't fix the problem. It just gets passed on to someone else. And more than likely, it's the people close to you. In his case, wife and his kids now have to deal with that energy. And so, man, if we can just take time to, one, to be there, and like you said, be at the mercy of the one that needs help, and two, the person that needs help, in your darkest hour, try and reach out.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be like, you know, this is what I'm going through. It's, hey, B, let's go grab a beer.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go play video games like we used to. Let's just meet up and talk. And I mean, just give yourself that 1 second to breathe and do that. And so, you know, I appreciate you sharing that. I was gonna ask you, what's been the toughest part of your journey? And I don't think it's one part.
I don't know that I can. Losing my brother was the toughest part of my journey, hands down. Yeah, I've lost a lot of people. I've lost a lot of friends. I've seen some shit. I've done some shit. But lose them. You know, with every other death I've dealt with in life, I've been able to control how I to the world. But now with Brian, I lose all ability to hold back my emotions when it comes to Brian.
That was big brother for both of
And let me say this. Brian was a dighead to me growing up. He was mean. He used to beat me up. He used to let his homeboys beat me up. Ishan, Jarvis. But all those brothers treated me like brothers my whole life as well. And no one outside of anyone could fuck with me outside of that circle. He protected me. He dressed me so I wouldn't look like a bum when I got to high school. He cut my hair from the time I was 10 years old to the time he died. We grew up watching scary movies instead of cartoons. Malik still remembers him. So much so he still cries. He was a great human being. Treated people with love and respect. He had his demons. He just couldn't get past. He was depressed. He refused to listen. I was there. My little brothers were there. My little sister was there. We were all there for him. And he drank himself to death because he couldn't cope. The toughest part of my journey is losing my brother. I miss him more than anybody in this world. I feel like no one knows me anymore. Everyone knows this polished, not so polished version of me. But nobody knows me anymore. Nobody understands my pain, my frustration like Brian. Like, we were connected. We're fucking connected. And I miss him. I miss him dearly. I just want my family to be whole. And I don't think it'll ever be whole.
When you talk about a family being whole, the thing that came to mind was a house. And so,
Me and Jazzy talk about it. We literally talk about it. We want to buy a cul-de-sac. Literally, just want to buy up a cul-de-sac and 4 or 5 houses, own them all.
yeah.
And it's just family. It's just for family. It ain't for nothing else but family.
Yeah.
Talk about it. I mean, we're working towards it. I mean,
And so I kind of want to use it in a metaphoric sense of having a house. And of course, I was talking to my son about this the other day, and I was telling him that the house isn't the most valuable thing that you own. It's the land that it sits on. And so, that's your base, that's your legacy. But with the house, of course, you're going to build this house, and over time, it's going to deteriorate. And so you have to keep it up. You have to remodel it as long as you can. And then at some point, you have to tear it down and build up a new house on that land. And so when you talk about your family being whole, it's that fact of life that one lives forever and that we are all going to die. But at the same time, we have this new generation for this new house to be built. So I personally feel like that's one of the things that keep us going. Yes, that old house is going, but that land, our legacy, the blood, sweat, and tears that were on that land that we built to create this life and this foundation are still there. And so the spirit of love is still with us, you know what I mean? And building that new house. And so like man, when I heard you say that, I feel the pain, and I also feel the hopefulness, the faith in that you're doing. I mean,
I get
you raising two beautiful boys, and you raising your family, and so I can't even imagine the part of your journey. But, man, you know what I mean?
just one foot in front of the other, brother. Just one foot in front of the other.
Indeed, and I like that you said that too. Okay, in this process, understanding that people deal with grief and trauma, and as they go along trying to process it, they tend to hurt people in the process of them being hurt. So
Yeah, that happens.
So have you hurt other people in the process, and how did you make amends? Or better, just how do people make amends? I don't want to get too deep into it.
I think I've been very conscious of how I treat people my whole life. I have said some harsh things sometimes in my grief. But I'm always careful about the things that I say. Just because, call it good raising, I guess. My dad was just always, what you say is very important. Is so important because you can't take it back, period. There's no taking it back. A bell can't be unrung, period, is pretty much what he was getting at. And when I have been harsh with my words, I depending on who it was, I have apologized. But again, that just chalk that up to good raising. My dad was always, you're a man, you're gonna make mistakes. When it happens, don't let it happen again. Then apologize. There's no excuse for someone who's not willing to admit they're wrong. When you're wrong, you're wrong. Just admit it. People will respect you more. They'll appreciate you more. And so when you hurt someone, step outside of yourself and realize that even if you are right, you don't have to be harmful about being right. You can be right and still be loving and inviting at the same time. And when you're not, just fucking it's this stuff really ain't that complicated. When you do something wrong, apologize. That apology means absolutely nothing if you don't change said behavior. So apologize and change the behavior you're apologizing for. It is that simple. Because if you come back around with that same behavior again and that same apology, you might get slapped. Why? Why are we having this conversation again? What's the point? You know? And I say that just that's my aggression coming out. But what's the point of me having a conversation with you over and over again? Yeah, I am not insane. I know I'm not insane. Why are we having the same conversation about the same behavior? So if you really do mean what you're saying when you apologize, the most important thing you can do is change your behavior. Words are good. Actions are better.
Got you. Okay.
People get hurt. And that's a part of life. And in that, as I said earlier, we would hope that people don't intentionally hurt people. We know it does happen sometimes. I would like to hope that most of the time it's unintentional. But be it intentional or unintentional, an apology seems very hollow with inaction.
Yeah. So what kept you going when you wanted to give up?
Jazzy. Malik. Jazzy literally just took the lick out of my hands and drove me to the studio to record. Got me home. Did it all over again. Stayed with me because she loved me. Couldn't find a job. Don't even know I was in the right headspace to even get a job at that time. It's probably a good thing I didn't get a job. Life was hard. It just seemed to get harder and harder. Jazzy was there. Like, we were homeless for a little bit. Jazzy was there. And that's the long and the short of it, man. Jazzy was. If I didn't have Jazzy, this would be a different story. I'd be a different person. To be perfectly honest. I don't know that. I honestly don't know that I'd be having this conversation right now, because. Yeah, man. Like I said, I felt like I lost. I just felt like I lost everything when Brian died. I didn't feel, even with Malik, I was in my head, I was like, yo, I got some bomb ass life insurance. If I die, then he good. That's what my head was. Yeah, I was Jazzy was everything that kept me whole. I was shattered pieces and all those good metaphors of broken hearts and shit. Yeah, Jazzy was there, just like, man, like with the patience of a fucking saint, like just patient with me and just loving and yeah, man.
Gotcha. So she's what kept you going. What caused you to correct some of your uh, destructive or just bad behaviors or negative behaviors?
I wanted to perform again. I wanted to be happy again. I wanted Malik to look at me and not feel sad when he looked at me anymore. Like I just, it's a tough thing when your son looks at you and you can see and feel the pity coming from him, like that. It made me feel some type of way. So I started shifting.
Okay. With 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 that question, and and all of this in mind, do you feel like a person has to go through the darkest hour in order to make a change?
No, absolutely not. No, you don't have to hit rock bottom. Hitting rock bottom is a choice. Hitting rock bottom is an excuse. It's an excuse to make your journey easier. I'm going to wait till I have absolutely no other choice but death or life. And then I'm going to make a choice. You don't have to wait for rock bottom. People get help. I honestly don't think I hit rock bottom. I think I was at a really, really low spot. And I say that because I was taking care. Malik was taken care of. Jazzy was taken care of. We were eating, roof over our heads. Everything was good. I wasn't rock bottom because I didn't allow it to affect my ability to take care of my family. But that may just be me talking, making myself seem better. It may be rock bottom, but I don't feel like I was at rock bottom. And I don't think you should have to feel like you have to hit rock bottom to make a change. If you see something wrong with your actions and what's going on, and you catch it early on, why wouldn't you just go ahead and make that change early on? That's like, it's like getting a flat, and then you just keep driving. The air's getting low. I know this is a bad idea. I'm just gonna keep rolling. And eventually, the air in the tire is gonna be gone, and then you're gonna be literally on a flat tire on a rim, and you're just gonna keep going. You're just gonna make a decision to keep going, or you're gonna stop to pull over to change the tire. Well, if you stop to pull over and you make a change, you can get on the road a little faster and smoother, or you can decide to just keep rolling. And this ride is going to get bumpier and slower, and you're going to destroy your rim, and there's going to be more problems that you got to deal with in the long run. So if you want to hit rock bottom, you want to destroy your rim, when literally all you have to do is change a tire, then I mean, by all means, destroy your life, destroy your rim. If that's what you feel you need to do to make a change, but just know that you ain't got to.
Yeah.
You can make a choice not to hit rock bottom. And it's hard. It's easier said than done. Yes, I know this, but it's still a choice.
Okay. Let's talk about seeking help. I know earlier you mentioned going to the VA and them not having funding or making excuses to help. Did you seek help professionally or have
Yeah,
you
I did.
done
When everything was going on with Brian and coming off of Brian and whatnot, getting back on my emotional footing, Jazzy was like, yo, you need to just go get help. Go see someone. Go talk to someone. You got to deal with this. So I did.
what
And
what is your counselor? Describe your counselor. What
so going to the VA, sent a little office. The long mental health questionnaires that they have, asking you physical health, anything, blah, blah, blah. Then they go through the whole mental health rundown, any suicidal ideations, you hear things, you see things. What brings you in today? And, it's such that's such a broad question, but yeah, and then they go into, well, let's talk about your experiences, and then experiences ain't all good, and you go through that whole drudge up and run down and hurt and pain and crying and all that shit, and then they asking what else in your life, and then what else in your life, and then what else in your life, and then what else in your life, and you got a brief little rundown of everything else in my life today, and then okay, well, that concludes the intake interview. We will be calling you to set up another appointment so we can get the ball rolling. And then get called back, then get callbacks called up there, and oh yeah, that program no longer exists. So it is what it is. That's my experience with the VA. And outside of the VA, I honestly haven't reached out. Why? Because don't have the money, the excess income to do that. I'm just now getting to a place where I can probably afford it. But be honest with you, brother, at this point, I'm not paying to be fucked up in the head all over again. I've gotten to a place where I've coped. I can cope. I'm dealing. My family's good. We're progressing. We're doing well. I don't respond to life the way I used to respond to life. A good portion of that is because I've removed myself from certain environmental stressors.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm doing well. My family's doing well. And I'm at a point where, you know what, screw it. 38, almost 40. I'm doing well. My family's doing well. I don't need nobody poking around in my head right now. And if I come to a place in the next few months or the next few years where I feel like I need to go talk, I'll go talk. But honestly, I just don't need that poking around anymore right now. Honestly, Greg, you seen me when I didn't have a place to live. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just coming up, just really working, looking for jobs, working, trying to, doing my craft and music and recording and performing and writing. And honestly, it suits me to leave it be for now. But that is a decision I've come to after talking to Jazzy, talking to my auntie, talking to a couple other my close friends that know me well. And they not all of them agree wholeheartedly, but they respect my thought process and decision in this matter.
Got you. Okay. And that's good. I want people to know what other folks' experiences are with seeking help with counselors and with like the VA and the whole nine, so that like they can have that option and that awareness going into it. What to expect. So I appreciate you sharing that. What would you give your younger self?
What'd you say?
I said, what advice would you give your younger self?
Save money and stay in music.
You said save money and what?
Stay in music.
Stay in music.
Save money. Yo, I'm being serious, man. Like I know like musicians right now, like even in this, they're still making money, man. Like it is a craft, and really all you gotta do is be consistent. And I love music, and so you asked me what I would tell myself: save money, stay in music. Don't so much worry about. Don't worry about girls. Girls are gonna come. Don't worry about friends. Friends are gonna come. The ones that want to be there are gonna be there. The ones that don't want to be there ain't. The ones that don't want to be there, some of them gonna be there because they can get something out of you. But it's like, honestly, man, just don't worry about nothing else but saving money and focusing on that. If I'm talking to anyone else, save your money and focus on that which makes you happy. Period. Like, don't worry about nothing else. The prototypes that they set up for us is not how the world works anymore. Hasn't for a while. So you need to be self-aware and self-sufficient.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So in closing, how can people get in contact with you? What are some of the things you're doing, effort, resources out there that you want to share? Like any of your work, like how can we get to know more about you and what you're doing?
Well, I'm on Facebook most of the time. You can catch me. That's Brandon Nehilla. That's Nehilla. Blue Beast. It's that guy, Blue Beast Nehilla. I don't think there are any other Brandon Nehillas on Facebook, but just in case, there ain't too many of us around. Yeah, I'm on there. You can catch my thoughts, some pics of Petey, and my family, and it's pretty cool there. Sometimes you catch some of my work on there. Instagram, BC if you're nasty. And also Instagram, Beastie Burns, Beastie_Burns. That's BEASTIE_Burns. It's my wood burn page that Jazzy set up for me. So she started taking video of me wood burning and stuff like that. And I've been doing some more commissioned things. Like I'm working on a Kappa shield right now for someone up in New York. So I just did a Sigma shield for someone up in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm working on some art pieces for the house. So yeah, I like to do wood burn art and stuff like that. And you can catch Skateboard Baby P on Instagram. My kid, he be skateboarding. I keep him at it. I love it. He loves it. And I'm just a crazy dad who just encourages his kids to do what they want to do.
Right.
And you can follow Malik Reckless on Instagram. That's my oldest. He's great. I love that kid to death, man. He's definitely a real good guy. Good head on his shoulders. Doing great in track. He's probably going to track and cross country and basketball. He's probably going to wind up getting. He's got scouts looking at him for the last 2 years, so he's looking at some potential scholarships for track, which is super dope. And he's really good at basketball, so he has a real good chance of walking on to play basketball if he so chooses. And I'm happy because he's thinking about going to North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, the greatest HBCU on earth. So, but yeah, man, you can catch me, and even on there, if you any of y'all catch me on Facebook, my phone number is on Facebook. I do that on purpose because people need to be in contact with me if they need to get in contact with me to do shows, they want to do art, they want to do anything. My email's on there. You can hit me up on Facebook. I don't even know why you would email me if you get my email off of Facebook. Just freaking send me a message on Facebook. If you see any artwork you like, I paint, I draw as well. And I can do anything for you. If you just want to chop it up, brothers, sisters out there who got issues that you're dealing with, you can hit me up anytime about anything. If you're dealing with some issues, I'll definitely be a shoulder, an ear, a brother who will listen. At the very least, I will listen. Don't be afraid to reach out to strangers, because sometimes you feel oddly connected to strangers, man. I got love in freaking Dallas, Texas. Is a young lady. I know her name is Gloria, and I know her tag is If You See Gloria, and she does some really dope, beautiful art. And we met on what was it? Not Twitter. God. I can't think of it's a social media site, and I just can't think of it right now because I just can't think of it right now. Anyways, we met on there, and she's a dope artist, and this was years ago, and we met talking about art. She's literally seen me perform via like virtual show, like live stream. She's tuned in, and I've supported her art and pushed her art. And when Jazzy went down to Texas for a business trip, I linked them two up, and she was able to link up with my wife, and she was able to show my wife around and do things. So don't be afraid to link up with certain people, man. If you feel connected, talk to them. You know what I'm saying? On the internet, you ain't got to meet them in person, but talk to them, because there's a lot of good people out here. Yeah, there's some crazy, some sick fucks, man, but genuinely, I think most people are good, and if you just reach out, you'll find that there are a lot more people out there that think like you, that feel the way you feel, and are just as lost as you think just as lost as you think you are. Mm-hmm. And you're never really lost, because wherever you go, there you are.
So, last words of encouragement or words of wisdom before we sign off?
I want to say something, and I don't in the same breath, because I don't want to end with some cheesy, weird quote, or sound pompous or arrogant, and like, that sounds witty, I should say that. So I would like to end the interview with my family prayer, if that's okay. I'll give it's a very simple prayer. We don't I don't presume to know the thoughts or wants of God or the universe or the creator. So I've stopped asking for anything other than one thing and one thing alone. And I just ask that God's goodness shines through me in all that I do every day. That's the only prayer I ever pray. So goodness through us, by you. Ashe.
Indeed. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on.
That's it for this week's episode of Guards Down. We are counting on you to join us in the mission of spreading awareness about trauma and complicated grief. Be sure to give us an honest review, subscribe, and share with someone this could help. Catch you next week.